Well, as I was saying, Lucky, it's a beautiful space.
Yeah, it's not a big space, but it's good.
Yeah, and you're telling us you started your apprenticeship with Steve and Sons.
That's right.
And effectively, you kept working for him until he died.
Until he died in 1970.
1970. And he, at the time, his company was the entity that made the Melbourne
Cups.
When
other trophies as well, but that was a major one.
What year were you first involved in making the cup?
2 years before he died, 78, something like that.
68.
68, sorry, 68. Yeah.
And so you would have just finished your apprenticeship?
Yeah, just finished. Yeah.
Were you the only apprentice?
No. There was there must have been about 7 of us working there.
Right, but you were the one he chose to work on the cup.
Well, yeah.
And would I be right that would have been the most significant contract he had?
At the time, yeah. But we had actually done some nice other work as well, individual work.
But in terms of
each year type situation, that was the most prestigious cup.
Yeah, and although he produced it, am I right? He was under contract
for Drummond.
Yeah,
William Drummond and Company.
Yeah, and Drummond was under contract with the VRC.
So it sort of went 3 ways.
And
it was a funny setup though.
Yeah, and in terms of making the cup, were you just every year at a particular time decided it was time to start?
Well, we get notice from from William Drummond's to order. Say you've got a contract to make the Melbourne Cup.
Right.
We ordered the material, and then what used to happen? That was after I took over. No, it was just. That's how it was, and then they delivered the gold. We'd produce the cup and then give it to them, and they actually promoted it, put it into their store because it was a very well organised.
Was it always a one design?
Yes, similar to the first ones.
Yeah.
His father produced the first Melbourne Cup. Morris, my boss, his father Jimmy, he produced the first Melbourne Cup with the 3 handles.
Right.
He was the first one. It's been a little bit different than the one that we used to make. The one we made, I think the design dates back to about 47. Prior to that, it was a little bit squatter and a little bit wider, and the handles are just a little bit different. But basically the same shape, but just a little bit of difference, like it is today. It's not like the one I used to produce in my day. It's a little bit different, maybe a bit taller, the bowl a bit different, the handles fit differently. So it's all been changed around, just a fraction.
And how long would it take you to make the cup?
Anywhere from about 140, 180, something like that hours.
Were they, in 1 week or over a period of time?
Over a period of about 4 weeks.
4 weeks.
Well, we always wanted about 4 weeks notice or something.
And was there a deadline by which it had to be?
Oh yeah, before the race.
The day? That's what I mean.
No. Usually, because before you got it, they had to have a plinth made. It had to have the engraving done. It's just Melbourne Cup or the year or whatever a case may be, and all that sort of finishing it. And they want to promote it also, so they needed it for their showroom. The earlier they got it, the more they could put it into their window and promote it.
And were you a racing man? Did you go to it?
No.
So your joy was just producing the actual cup.
just doing the work.
And that's it. Yeah. And I've read that where you said that the 2 people that influenced you in terms of the craft were Michelangelo and Cellini. Is that?
Well, you go through the books and you see some of their work, so you say, geez, not bad looking stuff. I wish I could do that. Basically, so you take a little bit of something from that. When you see a good piece of work, you geez, how did they do that? And being working with your hands and making things, you like to know how that person that achieved that end result.
You're a little modest, aren't you? Because you were commissioned to make a mace for the Parliament in Wales.
Yeah.
That the New South Wales government gifted to them. Now, did you know anything about Wales?
Not much.
So how did you learn?
Well, I did a bit of research, went and
Yeah.
bought some books and,
Yeah.
you know, got as much information as I could, did some drawings and so forth until we got the end result of
And
the
you
drawing.
produced it. How long did that process take?
Oh, sorry, I just haven't got it written down. I've
No.
got it written down, but offhand, well, we worked on it for probably a year before we actually did the whole lot of the thing. I mean, off and on.
And it was then presented, wasn't it, by the parliamentarians from New South Wales to Wales.
To Wales.
And I'll hold that up. I don't know if it can do justice to the camera, but first of all, that's a photo of them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, not a very good photo, but it's a
No,
photo.
well, my apologies. I think it's and how did you get the inspiration to come up with that design?
Well, what I normally do if I'm going to design something, I will sit there and sketch out maybe a dozen things what I think might be appropriate, and then you know you draw them up a little bit neater and put a bit of detail. And say for Wales, what was the national emblem, this, that, and the other colours they use, and try to blend those into the design somewhere along the way, and get those to the people that are concerned, the government people, or and go from there.
And apparently that's still in use in Wales.
Well, it should be. It'd be used for well, maces usually are there for eternity until they.
What materials did you use?
We used the materials would have been a base metal, and then gilded and gold plated.
Is that because the price of gold was too?
Well, I mean, something like that, the price of gold would be phenomenal. You start talking lots and lots of money. And, you know, a thing like that, if it weighs 10 kilos or 5 kilos, I think 4 kilos was about the max that I wanted to, when I do these things, because we've made a few maces. And the ones that I've always done is always tried to keep it to about 4 kilos or under, so that people can lift them up and do whatever. So, I mean...
For whom else have you made maces?
Oh, we've made for New Guinea. Tirabats, I don't know, about 5, I think we've probably made for different little countries around the Pacific. Made a few for the universities. Made a few for them as well. So we've made a few.
All right. And in relation to the Melbourne Cup, you produced it continuously for 30 years.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think, when did it stop?
For me?
Yeah.
It stopped 2000.
2000. And
that was the last one I've done.
And am I right that was because Drummond lost a contract and Hardy Brothers?
No. The Drummonds were well out of it by then. Hardy Brothers took it over probably in the early 90s, I think. I'm not quite sure when Drummonds went a little bit, and Hardy Brothers took it over. I think what they started to do was they started to sell the rights to make the cup and for someone to buy it, like for someone else. So I think someone's taken Hardy Brothers over, and they wanted to use their own people to do it. So so it got a little bit political.
And did you see it coming?
No. I just sort of the racing club got in touch with me and says, "Look, lucky we decided to go with these people, and they're gonna produce it and do whatever."
All right. And have you heard of a fellow called Dr. Andrew Lemon?
Yes.
Now, he wrote what I think was an interesting thing about the Melbourne Cup, because he says that there was a period when, in fact, the actual cups were being recycled. And what he wrote was this, that he says that the 1980 Melbourne Cup was, in fact, the 1953 Cup.
That's right.
That had been acquired by the VRC in the second-hand market. I think they actually got it off the deceased estate.
Well,
did you know that story? Or
yeah, because I was involved in it.
And he goes on and says, lucky Rocca refurbished it at the request of the VRC, who had acquired it from the deceased estate. In 1980, the gold price went through the roof.
That's right.
So it seemed to make sense to bring this old cup out of the vault and rebrand it.
That's right.
And they told you it was a...
Well, they told me it's a second-hand one.
A second-hand one.
Well, it's a second-hand one because I had it there and I had to take the engraving off. So I removed the engraving on one side and I said, well, don't use this side ever again because the material's too thin on this particular side in between the handles. So use another side where the thickness of the material is. So just in case they go through the material, because when we started very, very thin plate. So,
but what was interesting about that also, Dr. Lemon says, is that what Rocca did not know, and nobody in the VRC had remembered, was that the trophy was already second-hand when awarded in 1953.
Exactly. So it's been around.
And he there's no definitive proof, but he says that in fact it was a 1930 cup that was given when Far Lap won the Melbourne Cup.
I don't think so.
Well, you don't?
No.
No. Had you discussed with this?
Yeah, I spoke to him.
Did he ever say that it was a Melbourne?
He thought it was. Look, I've had a few people
Yeah,
come in and
yeah.
say, look, I've got a Melbourne Cup and it's
Yeah.
Far Laps.
Yeah.
It wasn't,
No. And why do you say that one wasn't Far Laps?
because it wasn't a particular shape, and it wasn't. It was just a later model version of it.
Yeah.
You know, just the shape wasn't. I don't think it was the right shape for it.
Because he bases his opinion having gone through the archives of the
Well, he's probably done a lot more research than I have.
But it's interesting that, and he also says that apparently there was one occasion when there were two owners of the one horse that won,
Yeah.
and so there was only the one cup,
Yes.
and the other chap went off and had one made up.
Well, that was pretty common, but that was allowed.
Yeah.
I'm
not saying that any of this wasn't allowed. I just find it interesting.
but I've often made two cups
yeah.
after the event, being that the racing club gave them permission to do another replica
Right.
of whatever. Say if you got 4 winners or whatever the case may be, they might have said, look, I'll keep the real one. Do you want to, I'll give you the money for, or whatever the case may be. I've made numerous times, we've made different ones. We've made them in silver and gold plated them, and we've made them in metal and gold plated them. Exactly the same as what the whatever.
And you mentioned the engraving.
Yeah.
Did you place your stamp on?
Well, I was always stamping them.
Right.
Yeah, but that doesn't prove anything. I mean, people can rip stamps off a base or whatever the case may be.
Apparently there's now, or when I say now,
They put them inside and they do it differently a little bit.
And am I correct that was one of the reasons why they've established this gold and silver smiths guild? Have you heard of that?
No.
No.
There is a guild, but I've never belonged to a guild.
You've never belonged to it? No need?
Well, I should have been, but I wasn't.
No.
So obviously,
but one of the justifications.
There is, but that's not the reason.
No.
I mean, really, if you stamp them well, and there's always someone can copy it or take the stamp out and fill it or do whatever.
Yeah. And so for 35 years you've been.
Or 30 years.
30
from 1970 to 2000.
And from then till now, you've just been doing general goldsmithing and silversmithing.
Church, trophies, whatever.
In a little while, I'd like you to perhaps take us through and point out what you've done in terms of pieces that are in your shop here.
Yeah.
Not to insult you, but you're now 75.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself retiring?
Oh, no, not for another year anyway. I'll let it go until next year and see how I feel.
Yeah.
I'll take it 1 year at a time.
Yeah. And who's coming up behind you?
No one behind me in this place.
In this case, yeah.
So the end of the line is there. So there's no one there behind me. That's where it is.
Yeah.
No one.
Does that sadden you that
No,
not
really.
Pass it on to? So you just got to close it up.
Well, I don't think I'd like to close it up as such. I mean, look, if you're looking through the camera there, you can see there's a million bits and pieces there. I could be here and enjoy my life just sitting here and talking to people coming in and, doing a little job here and there and selling some of these products.
Yeah. Why I ask that is that there are some who say that this sort of craft and skill is going to be made redundant because computers will be able to do it a lot better.
Yeah, three-dimensional printers can do.
Do you agree with that?
To a point.
Yeah.
There's always got to be the first model.
Yeah.
So someone's got to do the pattern.
Well, that's the interesting thing. They're saying now that they can program computers to actually do the creative
Oh, well, if that's the case, well, we haven't got
as
much
well.
chance. But I mean, looking at it how I stand today, it's just, you
So
know,
you
there's
still
always
you still need someone to create the pattern. And
well, someone's got to be able to create it, and then the machine does the rest of it. They'll copy it and then.
And they reckon that the machine can actually do the actual work as well, which is
but the finish and things like that, I think that you'd find that there's got to be a hand in it somewhere, a human hand somewhere around it.
But would you agree with me that when it comes to art, an element of flaw is intrinsic in it, and you don't really want perfection?
Well, you can't get it.
You
can't get it. No matter how much we try. I mean, I can, but at what price?
Yeah. No, and the other point is that it's all very, computers are fine, but from what I've read, each one would simply be a replica of the other.
Of course it would,
whereas
because it's a good program.
I would say that each cup you make would have a slight variation.
Well, there is, and that's a fact, because I mean, every one that I've done, I mean, throughout from the beginning to the 30th and beyond that, the other ones that I've made as well, they're always fraction smaller, fraction higher, diameter wise, and then weight.
Yeah.
The amount of material used. It all ends up at, say nearly a kilo at the end of the day.
Right.
Nearly a kilo. 5 grams this way, 4 grams this way, a half a gram this way, a half a gram way. And you can actually, it's got a thumbprint.
Really? Yeah.
Oh, if that particular year I made it, 1 kilo and the next one was 999, you know which year it was, because I've written it down.
Oh,
so that means so every year you write down the amount of material you use. So that means that you've got a sort of.
That's interesting. So you write down each year.
Yeah, each year the weights, the time, and all the rest of
it,
and everything.
Because
the scrap metal that we gave back and all
these must be the archives that Lemon.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
All these workbooks, basically,
that's right.
have been donated to Melbourne University.
Yeah. Well, that was the Steve ones. That's
Steve,
what I'm saying.
Exactly,
yeah, but I've still got some from.
Have you?
Yeah, from. I think from the 60s, from 60s, I think, something like that, or the 50s maybe. I'm not quite sure.
And you've got all of yours.
Yeah, I've got mine.
Well, don't destroy them or don't lose
them. No, they're my property. So
exactly. And the point is, I think it'd be a pity if art such as yours were to be replaced by machines, despite what they tell us is going to be better. Yeah. Now, my ignorance, but until Pat told me, I didn't know that you were the maker of the Melbourne Cup. And I dare say...
Not these days, but in the past.
In the past,
in the past.
Was it well known that you were the maker?
I mean, the newspapers come down nearly every year and take pictures or an interview with the TV station or something along that line.
Yeah. Right. And you also make religious objects, don't you? Chalices.
Chalices.
Is that on commission?
Yeah. Most of our work is commissioned.
From what? Priests?
From priests,
bishops,
whatever. Yeah.
And do you just follow a brief or?
Again, we do the same process, design and forward the sketches, the drawings, and if they're happy, we'll go ahead and do.
And what sort of research would you need to do when?
It all depends on the customer.
Let's say it's a chalice.
Well, I'd say, what particular shape? You're going to put any of your family jewels in there? Because a lot of priests have got rings donated from parents and things like that. And they might want to use them in their stones or whatever. And so you ask all these basic questions.
When you say use them, you mean
reused,
and then use it,
make it into a cross or something like that. Okay. So to enhance the chalice, and so you ask all these different questions, and everyone's got a different.
Now, when you decided to embark on this journey as a silversmith, did you discuss it with your parents?
I don't think I did actually, but earlier on, I mean, when I was an apprentice, I used to take a lot of work home. I started working from home and not at work, and I made a little workshop in the backyard virtually, and I used to make up little rings and sell them to little stores, just plain band rings, and for mates I'd make up a ring or something like that. So I already started making little bits and pieces, for all that sort of stuff. So they knew earlier on that, well, he must be keen in doing it. And then I went to Dad's shop. He had a shop in Brunswick, and this is before I took over the Steve's. Dad had a couple of shops in Nicholson Street, which the people weren't using the front of it. And I ended up taking the two little shops over and putting a little workshop in there, and I used to run night classes out of there as well. So for a year or two. So, I mean, so it was on the go virtually from the start.
And I dare say their attitude would have been as long as you're working.
Well, I think as long as off the streets is more to the point. I think Dad was happy to see me off the streets.
You're doing well. All right. Well, look, thanks very much. I'd like you to just